When we talk about food processing equipment that is commonly used in a commercial setting, we are talking a lot about cutters and mixers. So there are small appliances that will cut meat and vegetables, and they can do that more efficiently sometimes than someone with a knife can do, particularly for very large quantities. In my classroom, in my lab, when we are preparing large quantities of shredded carrots or hash brown shredded potatoes, I'll very commonly use the slicer blade on the food processor. If we are doing, say, meatloaf and I want a large quantity of minced onions and peppers together, then the food processor is just more efficient than the knives are. So a countertop blender can puree and liquefy. They can blend food items. Essentially, they have a motor and then they have a pitcher that rests on top that has blades in it. In my classroom, I have both a Vitamix, which is a professional brand of blenders. It has a blade housed in the bottom of the pitcher, and it works like a household blender, but it's much more powerful. I also have a Ninja, and the Ninja blender is very large, but it houses three blades, and they are stacked throughout the pitcher. And those blades actually come out of the pitcher a little bit easier than the Vitamix does. Um, the Vitamix will make a smaller portion of, say, a smoothie, but the Ninja, I think personally, does a better job, and it's a little safer on cleaning because you don't have to reach your hand down in there and try to clean around the blade. There's also a food chopper. And so this is going to chop vegetables and meat and other food items. This has a vertical rotating blade, and then the bowl actually rotates the food underneath the blade. This is referred to often as a buffalo chopper. There is also the Roboku, and the Roboku grinds, purees, blends, crushes, and also kneads food. So this is a lot like a food processor that you might see in a home on a much larger and much more powerful scale. I have a series of Cuisinart food processors in the with the large bowl base on them, and for most of my needs, I find this to be pretty productive and a really good deal as opposed to the commercial processor. Um, I think that I could buy several Cuisinarts for the cost of one of these pieces of equipment, and pretty much take care of anything that I need to take care of. There's also a horizontal cutter or mixer, and this one cuts, mixes, and blends food quickly. And this has a horizontal blade as opposed to the buffalo chopper that has a vertical blade. It's just really important to make sure that you do not open a lid until the blade has stopped spinning. This piece of equipment here, this is not a mechanized piece of equipment. This is a hand tool, and this is called a mandolin. And this one is a manually operated slicer. It slices and it juliennes. It'll do smaller quantities of fruits and vegetables with very consistent results. This will also create waffle cut items like carrots and French fries. It typically comes with a sled that is a safety mechanism that you can put food in. But honestly, most of the time when I'm doing something like a potato, it doesn't fit in the sled, and then I have to like take the sled off and then put the sled on. So what we typically do is we put on a rubber glove, and then we use a steel cutting glove and then another rubber glove over top of that. And that will prevent the blades from cutting your fingers and will allow you to hold the food item in your hand. And I also tell my students not to be too worried about the very ends of the carrots and potatoes, to just discard them when your hand gets close to the blade and don't worry about it. But I find the mandolin to be very useful, particularly when making a really nice julienne or getting that waffle cut or a really nice slice. There's also the meat grinder, and this would allow you to create your own sausages or ground meat products. Um, Commercial ground meat products may have spices or seasonings. When you are doing your own, you can create a special blend of fat to lean ratio, and you can just get a better product. So, house made sausages and artisanal sausages are very easy to make, and they're very good, and you can make some really amazing ones. For example, a lot of commercially made chorizo sausage sometimes contains clove in it, and I don't care for the perfumy taste of the clove in my chorizo, so I grind down and make my own brats. You can get a sausage stuffer utensil that goes on the end of that, and some natural casings at a local butcher shop. I think you can even order casings off of Amazon now, and it's just really easy and it's inexpensive, and you get a really good product. The slicer, you may have seen one of these at a grocery store or in a deli. This is essentially has a slanted circular blade. You put the food item into a sled and you slide it back and forth across the blade, and it makes nice slices. It's adjustable. It's easy. These are pretty easy to care for. It's just really important to make sure that you keep your fingers out of the way. There's also the mixer. There's a floor mixer, and then there's a stand mixer. The stand mixer um, can range in size. There's a photograph here of the KitchenAid mixer, which is pretty common even in household use. And then there's a floor mixer, which would do much larger quantities and amounts of food items. So it depends on how much or where exactly you're working. If you work somewhere and they bake off big trays of their own bread, they're making pizza dough or biscuit dough, or if you are baking large quantities of cakes or cupcakes or cookies, then a floor mixer is a really good idea. And they also come in varying sizes. There are different attachments that come with the mixers. The flat beater paddle is going to be the most common, and that is mixing, mashing, and creaming foods. A wire whip, just like a whisk, is going to be used to incorporate air and to lighten food ingredients. There's also a wing whip, which is a little bit heavier version. They often have like a whip inside of a whip. And then there's the dough hook, which is for thick, heavy kneading of doughs like pizza doughs and usually yeast doughs only. When we are utilizing the mixer in my classroom and lab, typically I use the beater bar, the flat paddle, to mix and combine the ingredients, and then we switch and we go to the dough hook for the kneading purposes.